When I was a seminarian, we had a brother seminarian who was born and raised in Haiti. And though he had lived in the United States and in Canada for a number of years, one of the characteristics of his upbringing that always remained with him is that he never left a meal empty-handed. Whether we were at breakfast or lunch or dinner, he would never be able to just walk out of the room like the rest of us empty-handed. He'd always take a piece of fruit or some leftovers and wrap them in foil or carry them out in the box. If you went to visit him in his room and you went to pull a book off his shelf, there'd be a banana, or if you went to open a drawer in his dresser, there'd be 2 apples and a pomegranate. If the zombie apocalypse had happened, he'd be good for at least a week. But friends, that's precisely the point. When you grow up in a place where there is no guarantee of a next meal at your current one, you will do all that is possible to survive and sustain yourself. This habit of taking food and storing it away in his room, it wasn't a habit out of convenience or some sort of desire to hoard. It really was a remnant of his very need to exist and to live. You have to save up as much as you can because you have no clue when the next opportunity for food will be. That instinct to protect, to hoard, it is perhaps one of the most basic instincts of human survival. It ensures that we might be able to live, especially in places and times when God's abundance might not seem so prominent. Yet in spite of this most basic of human desires and instincts, the scriptures are constantly inviting us to share, to give, and to sacrifice. In today's first reading, Elisha's servant objects the 20 loaves aren't possibly enough to feed the 100 people that are with him. If you remember, Elijah asks the widow of Zarephath for a crust of bread in the time of famine, and she responds, "Look, all I have is a handful of flour and a drop of oil. Once we use this up, my son and I will surely die." The people of Israel are called to rebuild the temple and to relight the menorah, and all they have is a day's worth of oil. Not nearly enough to sustain their needs. And of course, famously in today's gospel, 5,000 are hungry, and one boy offers 5 loaves and 2 fish. You can imagine the shock on his face. Your emergency does not constitute mine. I came prepared. Why should I suffer? Why should I go hungry? Why should I have less than I need so that those who are unprepared might have food? This seems inherently unjust. But friends, let me suggest in each of those instances where protection and saving and hoarding would be completely understandable, God responds to their gift with miraculous power. The widow's jar does not go empty. The oil in the menorah in the temple lasts for 8 days, and today in the gospel, 5,000 are fed with plenty of leftovers. Friends, God is never stingy with his grace and his love. And the way that he responds to our generosity is always to double it, or triple it, or quadruple it. Because what he calls us to share, what he invites us to share, it's never ultimately ours. It's not our possession. It is first and foremost his gift. He is the one who's the creator of the world. He is the one who gifts to us every single thing we have. And if we seek to use those things for his glory, then he will fill us with his grace, good measure, and flowing over. This is, perhaps for us human beings, one of our greatest challenges. We will always be tempted to cling to hold on, to protect what we have so that we might seemingly live, so that we might seemingly be safe and secure for the future. But God's invitation is always to give, to share, to be generous. And it's not just about sharing our stuff. It's not just about sharing our resources or our money or the goods of this earth. It's about sharing all those other elements of our life as well. How often do we want to protect our time, our way of life, our view of the world, our understanding of how things ought to go and should go? How often do we want to cling to those things because they bring us safety and security? They bring us comfort and lack of fear. Friends, this morning, God invites us to consider, like the young boy in today's gospel, like Elisha's servant, like the widow of Zarephath, how he might be inviting us to give and to share of his gifts, even when they might not seem to make sense to us. To find those moments when we will encounter our desire to protect and to hoard and to safeguard. And to consider if the Lord is knocking in those moments and inviting us to sacrifice, inviting us to charity, inviting us to offer ourselves, just as he offers himself to us here in the gift of the Eucharist. Perhaps that means for us sharing our physical gifts and resources. Perhaps that means giving food to feed the hungry, alms for those in need. But perhaps it might also mean for us loving someone who annoys us. Perhaps it means entering into relationship with someone who's different from us or votes for someone else who has an understanding or worldview that seems contrary to ours. Perhaps it means putting aside our own desires and preferences so that someone else's life might be enriched and renewed. None of these are easy. All of them are scary. They all require sacrifice. But like the widow's mite, if we offer to the Lord all that we have, we will come to be like him and share in his eternal glory. And so, as we receive the gift of the Eucharist at this Mass, may we, who are nourished and fed at this altar by God's body and blood, soul and divinity, be enriched and emboldened to share our life with others, and in so doing share in his Paschal mystery.